closing this release. Okay, that you might be a quality cop, or at least an aspiring quality cop. If you have ever taken off your shoe and banged it on the table and insisted that nobody in the organization cares about quality but you are definitely a quality cop. And by the way, that didn't work for Khrushchev, and it ain't working for you. So don't bang your shoe on the table. So, in all seriousness, stopping releases when everybody else but you thinks that it's fine to release. Now, I'm not talking about making an impassioned argument against releasing crap into the market. You, by all means, do that, right? Back it up with data, be able to say, this is why I think this is a bad idea. But sometimes realities prevail, right? I remember making a case for not releasing software once. There was an executive in the room, and he said, yeah, okay, fine, but we're releasing anyway. And I said, well, it's your decision, but can you tell me why? He said, well, yeah, we had a meeting with the venture capitalists who are funding the company last week, and they said if we don't realize revenue this year, we're dead. And we have to get the software done now in order to realize revenue this year. So this is the better a live dog than a dead lion argument, and it's really kind of hard to top, and it's not our job to stand in the way and say, oh, no, I'm standing on principle. Let's not release it. Now, there are circumstances where this could be a little bit off, or a little different. If you're in the safety critical world, and you're being asked to cover up issues that threaten the health and safety of some customers or users, and in that case, there might be a moral aspect to this, and I'm not saying behave in an immoral fashion, but most of the time, these things are about hard-headed business decisions. Business decisions that you may not entirely agree with, but as long as you're part of the organization, then you need to try to help those decisions succeed. Okay? So, again, inform, persuade, argue for quality by all means. Be an impassioned advocate of better testing and better quality. That's part of your job, and people will expect that from you. But insisting, enforcing, thinking that you're the defense, I'm defending the user against these evil people that are surrounding me in this company, that's not really a healthy mental attitude. But here's another one that's definitely in the unhealthy mental attitude category. Conflict. Deep-seated, long-standing conflict between the test manager and other stakeholder managers. Okay? So if you have said or thought, God, that guy is such an idiot, about one of the developers or development managers or someone in charge of business analysis or something in your organization, you might have a problem here. Ask yourself, if you're a test manager, think about the other managers that you work with and ask yourself, is there anybody in that group that somebody pretty much have to put a gun to your head before you would eat lunch with them? Like you just despise that person so much and you'll do anything. You can't bring yourself to be civil to them. You just have to be out of the room so that you don't say something unfortunate. That's the clash of the titans going on there, right? You've got a problem with that person. Or if you've ever decided to walk the long way to some location to try to avoid passing by someone's office or where you might run into them, it's like, I really don't want to see that person. Right? That could be an issue. It also could just be that person eats a lot more garlic than you think they should. And that's a different story. Right? Or they don't take as many showers as you'd like. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about concerns about personal hygiene here. I'm talking about you've got a real issue with this person and you just don't want to have anything to do with them. Okay? See, this is a problem because you are in a service providing mode. Right? You have to help these people succeed. You've got to communicate effectively with them. If you're in a situation where there's so much mutual animosity, that's going to create a huge barrier to conversation, to communication. You're trying to communicate effectively with somebody who doesn't want to talk to you, you don't want to be talking to them. That's going to be a problem. Now, definitely, as I say here, like a bad marriage, it's a lot easier to avoid these situations than to fix them once they've started. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, and you love all your coworkers, and you like having lunch with them, by all means, keep it up. Right? Avoid getting into this situation because it's very hard to fix. Okay, so what can you do? I mean, beyond just trying to be Mr. or Ms. Cheerful, what can we do here? Well, I've got some suggestions. Can help. Know who your stakeholders are. Make sure they know you. Know what your stakeholders want. Define what you're trying to accomplish and what it would look like for you to accomplish it. What is success? Walk the walk and follow up. So, who are your stakeholders? Okay. What is a stakeholder? A stakeholder would be anybody who has some sort of interest in the testing or the quality of the system that's ultimately delivered. So that casts the net pretty broadly. Now, obviously, your direct manager, people you report to, is a stakeholder. Other typical stakeholders would be technical stakeholders and business stakeholders. All right? So, developers, development managers, technical support people, those would fall into the sort of technical category. Business category would be marketing people, project managers, and so forth. Now, I'm not saying these are hard and fast separations. You can have people who, sales staff, for example, who have a fairly strong technical orientation. Okay? So I'm not saying, oh, it's important to categorize stakeholders as business or technical. Okay? What I'm saying is, think about people with a technical perspective, think about people with a business perspective. You'll have stakeholders in both of those areas. So know who these people are, because these are the people you're helping. You're helping them in some way or another. They care about what you do, or they care about how what you do influences the quality of the deliverable. So they care about the effect of your work. They're the people you're providing a service to. Okay? So, know them, establish a relationship with them, okay? A friendly relationship, right? Now, if you are a feared enforcer, quality cop, process cop, you have an existing bad relationship with one of these stakeholders, this is going to take some work. Right? As I said, it's easier to fix it, or easier to not break it than it is to fix it. Okay? And just to give you an example of how poisonous some of these things can get, we did an assessment for a client once, and this was definitely, Clash of the Titans situation. Everyone we talked to outside of the testing organization, so basically all of their stakeholders, and we asked, what's the value of testing? And their answer was, testing has no value. Those testers are just an obstacle for us to have to try to work around. And then we asked the testers things like, well, what's the role of developers in ensuring quality? What are you doing here? And they're like, the developers ensuring quality, give us a break. Those people are morons. If it wasn't for us, this place would be going up in smoke. They're completely worthless. Okay? So we went to my associate and I did the assessment, went to the CIO who had asked us to do the assessment. And I said, I hate to speak in cliches, but this is a classic good news, bad news scenario. And he said, okay. I said, the good news is that on an objective measures of effectiveness and efficiency, your testing and quality is maybe 18, 24 months away from world-class levels. You're in pretty good shape, and you could get to like excellent shape in 2 years. He said, well, that is good news. What's the bad news? I said, the bad news is that the current management team can't get you there. Not in 18 months, not in 24 months, not in 20 years. He said, why? I said, because they are more interested in being right, and more importantly, the other person being wrong, than they are in working together collaboratively to make any improvements. So you'll never get beyond where you are right now because you're stuck. You're stuck in conflict between these stakeholders. Okay? So, delivered the report. The CIO was, not surprised by that. Of course, many times they know these things are going on. They're just looking for outside confirmation. And, they basically made a last effort to try to rehabilitate this situation and got nowhere. And so 6 months later, most of the management team was gone. Invited to pursue other opportunities, I think the euphemism is. Okay? So if you're in these situations, I mean, this is not, not just a matter of, it makes me sad to work in a job full of conflict. This is not about people getting their pillows wet with their tears at night. So there might be some of that going on. The bigger issue is people losing jobs, people getting fired, right? If you're in a management position and you can't get along with your coworkers, that's a pretty significant strike against you. Okay, so you know who your stakeholders are, and to the extent that there were relationship issues, hopefully you made those go away. Is everything peachy? Well, not necessarily, because while it's important to have a positive relationship with your stakeholders, you have to deliver for them. So what do they want? What are their objectives for you? Okay, and you gotta have this conversation. It's got to be focused on what testing can actually do. Okay, everybody wants to deliver a quality product on time and within budget. Okay, yeah, well, everybody wants that. You can't do that single-handedly, but you can contribute to that. You can contribute that by doing things like finding bugs, especially the most important bugs, the ones that would be a major quality impact, right? Building confidence in the system, right? Making sure that the system is ready to release, okay? Of course, if it's not, warning people that it isn't, right? I'm not talking about building false confidence. I'm talking about building true confidence. Giving people information so that they can make smarter decisions. Yeah. Reducing the risk of production failure. These are ways that we can contribute. So have a conversation about how to attach these kinds of objectives to stakeholders and their perception of you and what you can do. Have a constructive conversation with them about what contribution you can make. And be ready that different stakeholders will have different objectives that they find important. And sometimes they might surprise you. They may not put it in exactly these words, but you'll probably hear this. So I was doing an assessment once for a client, and I was asking this project manager, do you think testing is important? What does it do for you? He said, oh, testing is extremely important. And I said, help me understand why you feel that way. He said, now remember, this guy's a project manager. He works in a bank, delivers software into the bank's production data center ultimately. And as you can imagine, if you've done work in banking, finance, it's mission critical stuff, right? So he said, I have this recurring nightmare that I've worked on a project and we've delivered something into the data center, and that piece of software has brought down the entire bank. Nothing works. Not the ATMs, not the branches, not the back office, nothing. It's all down. And I get called into the managing director's office, and he's yelling and screaming at me about how this bank has been in existence for 100 years, and now I have single-handedly ruined it and put it out of business. And he adds, and this is in the too much information category, he says, and because it's a nightmare, I'm naked. And I'm like, okay, well, thank you for that. And he says, then I wake up and I realize that can't happen to me because I have, let's just call her Janet. And he said, because I have Janet. Who's Janet? Janet's the manager of the test group, right? She's the director of the testing organization, okay? So what's his objective? Confidence, right? He wants to have confidence that that can never go beyond just being a nightmare, right? So, understand what is it that they're looking for from you. Have that conversation with them. This is going to have two really important benefits. One is you're going to understand what they're looking for, right? And then, of course, you can deliver it. The other is this sends a message to the stakeholder that not only do you want to have a positive professional relationship with them, that's the, have a good relationship with the stakeholders bit, but you actually care at a detailed level what it is that they want from you, right? So it sends this very strong, I'm here to help you, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that message. That's going to be very valuable, especially if you're trying to recover from one of these feared enforcer situations, okay? Now, it could happen that one of the stakeholders says, help me not do a bad thing. That could happen, but I've never run into that, okay? In all my working with organizations, working in organizations, consulting and so forth, I've never had a development manager, project manager, anybody say, please stop me from destroying myself. Okay, they don't want a process cop, they don't want a quality cop, right? You are very unlikely to hear a request for that. Okay, now if you do hear that, okay, that's the start of a very interesting conversation. But I'm guessing that if you have this conversation, you're not going to hear anybody ask you to be a process cop or a quality cop. Okay, now, what you might hear, though, is unrealistic objectives for you. Okay? They might say something like, make sure you find all the bugs before we ship, or make sure that the software never has any regression problems in production, or other equally unreasonable things. Okay? I remember having a conversation with a director of development once, and I asked him, what percentage of the bugs do you think the test team should find? I was doing an assessment of the test team. He looked me straight in the eye, absolute straight face. He said, they should find all of them. And I said, well, given that the requirements tend to be changing right up until a few days before the software is released into the data center, and given that there are 100 different applications in the data center, and there's no coordination in terms of the release plans for those applications that are going into the data center, and the only place they get tested together is in the testing operation, but it's only for maybe an hour or two that any one of them is stable before they're promoted. I mean, do you really think they could find all of the bugs? And so he looked at me and he said, well, at least they should find Six Sigma. Okay, so the lesson there, by the way, if you aspire to senior management, know your buzzwords, right? It says Six Sigma. He says Six Sigma. So what does that mean? Well, Six Sigma would basically mean that out of 1 million bugs, the test team gets to miss 3. Okay? That's the literal meaning of Six Sigma capability. That is impossible. I've seen test teams that were very, very good and had a 99.5 defect detection effectiveness on a sustained period of time, but I've seen one like that out of all the ones I've worked with. That's an exceptional level of performance, and that's not even close, right? So if the expectation is that you are going to do something which is impossible, you need to work that out, because no matter how well you perform on an objective basis, if somebody expects you to do the impossible, you're a failure in their eyes, right? You might be a very nice failure. They might feel very nice about you personally, right? But if you're not delivering what they want, then they're going to perceive you as having failed. So this is an important thing. You need to work this out. Now, so how do you do with this? How do you deal with this? Well, I mean, one of the things you have to recognize is, why are they doing this? Are they doing this because they have been upset with you in the past, and this is a tactic? It's like a negotiating tactic. You know, they're gonna ask for the moon so that they get somewhere between here and the moon, kind of thing, right? There could be some of that going on. You know, so you have to have a conversation. I have to be careful that you don't get confrontational, or you know, escalate to your manager and get back into one of these Clash of the Titan things, you know. Like, well, I just went and talked to the director of development, and his expectation is I'm going to find have Six Sigma defect detection effectiveness, and clearly the guy's a moron. I can't do that, you know, and then bang, there you are, right back into the Clash of the Titans. So this is no good. You don't want to just, this should not be a vehicle by which confrontation reemerges, right? So what I would suggest is if somebody's asking you to do